Hello, it's Mrs. Duncan, your Humanities 101 instructor, and today we're going to talk and go through your Chapter 12 from your textbook on cinema. Another way of thinking of this is cinematography, because it focuses on the art of making movies, and you'll have several, I hope, interesting activities to do in this unit, but we do have quiz and content over the chapter, so let's take a look. And we start at the beginning of Chapter 12 on page 304. And the first thing it gives you is a little bit of the history of cinema, and I have a nice little short video that kind of puts all that through really fast when they were first in black and white and when they added sound. And then just a year ago, 2013, the industry, it says, has been almost entirely digitalized, but we still use the word film, even though it's technically not the actual medium that is used. We still use that word and borrow from it. Well, the subject matter of film, compared to most of the other genres, is very complex, difficult to isolate, and there's so much going on, and many times you need to watch a film. Really, you've got to watch it several times in order to analyze it. The first time you watch a film, you just are there hoping to be engaged and to lose yourself in it and like the storyline and see what's happening. But to analyze the the artistry, the cinematography, the use of the camera, the shots, and even interpret all the subtle meanings takes several viewings. So it's not really possible for us in a week to discuss and view and see everything that we would need to, but we're just going to learn a little bit more about it and how it would be analyzed and have you look at a couple of features. The only thing that's even close in terms of complexity is literature, a well-written piece of literature, not just a short story, but a novel or an epic that has multiple layers of subject matter and themes and narratives going on. Then the chapter introduces us to all that's involved in it. The special terms for the auteur, which is the author of the film, which is not the same thing as the script writer. The script writer, much like a playwright, writes out the story. Maybe they start with an original, or maybe original storyline, maybe something already published. You know, it's really popular to do now, take a book and turn it into a movie, like the Twilight series or the Bourne Identity, the James Bond movies. There's quite a few. Even the one that's coming out this fall, 2014, the Alexander and the Very Bad, Horrible, No Good, Horrible, Terrible, No Good, Very Bad Day, which is based on a children's book. Of course, they've made it more complex for film, but the filmmaker becomes the author of the film. So it takes on a whole nother quality when it moves off of a script into this film that has sound and image and complexity, and it's pieced together in a particular way, so they get a special name. And there's so many features. Like we said, it has to have a storyline, a narrative structure. That's what we mean there. It's going to have music, it's going to have a soundtrack, it's going to have special effects, it's going to have sound effects, and the subject matter's got to be complex enough for us to want to sit through. These things take hour and a half, 2 hours, hour and a half, 2 hours of our time, and months to produce. You do have to have someone who starts with a script, and then you have someone who's the director. You have to have some financial backing, which is what you have for a producer. You have to have people who operate the cameras, the editor. It tells us sometimes the director does the editing, but the editor is the person, bottom of 306, who puts the shots that were taken by the cameras after and puts them in order after the filming is finished. I don't know if you really realize that unless you've watched something be filmed, but there are multiple cameras that are taking shots from different angles. Some are taking close-ups, some are taking distance shots, and different points of view all at the same time, and so they can't use everything, so they look at what's filmed by one camera and another one, and they have to piece it together to tell the story they want to tell in the way they want to tell it. That's filmmaking. It's not just setting up the video camera at the back of the room and just turning it on and it taking in everything. It's very crafted and constructed, and that's what makes it an artistic form. You have designers, you have scenic designers and costume designers, and just to name a couple. You have researchers who make sure that everything that's being presented is accurate. You have costumers, which kind of mentioned, but then they take the design and actually create a costume out of it. What we pretty much are only aware of are the actors and actresses, the people we see. And so while we might be familiar with some directors' names, Steven Spielberg or Francis Coppola, it's the actors and actresses that get the most recognition. They're the people that we recognize if we watch the Academy Awards, or we go, oh, I'm going to go see, you know, Brad Pitt in this movie, or Julia Roberts, or someone like that we like to see in movies, and they're more famous, obviously. All right, so the business of filmmaking is directing and editing. Directing is kind of how they tell the cameras which shots they want them to shoot, and then when they edit, they put them together. Some of the people who did this early on to really create this into art are these two people, Griffith and Eisenstein, the great early geniuses of filmmaking. They took it and made it an art form. Instead of, like I said, just one camera taking in everything and then just cropping out, a little stuff, but they produced something that was recognizably art. And they did it all. They wrote the script, they picked the cast members, they chose the locations, they did the camera filming, shooting, they directed it, edited it, and financed it, and really made it into something pretty amazing for the time. But if you look at the dates on the top of 306, we're talking about the early 1900s by Griffith, and then 1925 and the 40s for Eisenstein, but it says they're still being shown and are still influencing contemporary filmmakers. So they did something very special. We'll get to that a little bit later too. I can already tell this is going to take me more than one video to get through these little short screencasts, but Alfred Hitchcock changed filmmaking as well. All right, so we have a lot of definitions, and I'm not going to try to read them all to you, but they have to do with the kinds of shots, and that's the single exposure of camera without break. Maybe you say cut, 3, 2, 1, action, and then cut. It's when the shot is started and stopped. So you have a variety, and I'm not going to watch it on here for time, but I have this in our Unit 12 videos. That just it's real short, but it shows you the different kind of shots. It's just so much more interesting to see that description along with the actual shot. But you have the establishing ones that set up the location. Almost all your movies start with something like that. We like the close-ups when you see them up close. Obviously, a long shot from afar, medium, very basic, very typical. And then you have some that are more unique. The following shot, where they go along with it, which is similar to tracking, but the tracking shot, the camera moves with the figure at the same time, like they're actually on a little train track. So if the actor's running down down the sidewalk, you don't, you see the same part of the actor's body in the frame because the camera's moving with it. Point of view could be up, down, from what looks like what the actor is looking, that kind of thing. Sometimes they have to put it up on a crane to get the angle that they want. So there's just a variety of shots. They decide what those are ahead of time. Then the director will stop, see what he got and what they got, and then decide if he wants to add something. Sometimes they put that camera right on the shoulder to get that sense of the cameraman and run around, to give that sort of in the moment kind of raw footage kind of feel. Then you have the recessional going away, professional coming in. There's just all kinds. But it is cinematography. It's an art. It's they decide on these ahead of time because of the look that they are trying to create. Because it's your eye. You only see what is taken a picture of, and not a still picture, but the images that the cameras record. That's it. And then what the director and editor decide you'll see. Here's just a nice little short image, because where these would be blocked off, if you had an extreme close-up, you would see all close up to the eyeball. Typical close-up is the face right up there. And then you have the full figure head to toe, your medium close-up, your medium shot. And these are in the mid-range. Usually you see close-ups and medium shots. Occasionally you see the full figure and the extreme close-up. Those were the shots. The cuts are how they're joined together. Okay, so they're edited together, how the footage is edited. You put a collection together, to create your story, to give it that sense of narrative, story, continuity. You can chop it up just as well too, and this is discontinuity, where it's not a narrative. You can, cut in from wide to close. You can jump cut really fast to change the pacing. You can go from one location to another. We're used to that. We don't even know that's what's happening. We just watch. These are very popular kinds of ways that you would go from one cut. You would dissolve, like it's very slow, similar to a fade, but a fade is dark to bright, or bright to dark, and fading out. So this goes scene to scene. Dissolve goes scene to scene. Fade is dark to light, or light to dark. Then a wipe is kind of like a dissolve, but not as smooth. There's a line that you can visibly see. If you've ever messed around with like Microsoft Windows Media Player, or they've got Movie Maker. That's it, Movie Maker. You to make something like a slideshow, you use these kind of features. The one I want to emphasize here, they have the graphic match, is the montage. Alfred Hitchcock, famous 1940s, 50s filmmaker that changed filmmaking. So montage gives you control. And so it's the sequence of images that convey something, some meaning, and ways that you interpret things, that you don't need a narrator to tell you just what happened, because you infer from the montage, the collection, the sequence that they put together. All right, moving over to chapter 12, and I do encourage you to watch, well, you're supposed to anyway, watch the little videos I gave you that kind of show these and illustrate these concepts more clearly than just reading them in the book, or me telling you about them. That are in the video, the rest of the videos that you have, and they're fairly short. I picked them on purpose for their time efficiency. When we get to page 308, they talk about the participative experience, and that's the one we identify with. We know when we go to a film, we quiet, we listen, we laugh out loud. Sometimes we might cry. We get caught up in it, and we don't have to plan, we don't force it, it just happens. We tend to identify with actors, and they talk a little bit about this, and this is not a substitute for reading the chapter at all, but about Forrest Gump, and Tom Hanks plays this character that is not really like any of us, but there's something about him that we identify with. We participate. We see something in him that we would either like to see more in people, the trusting, innocent, good-hearted characteristic that he has, or that we want to believe in. Sometimes we are looking for that ideal. They talk about that with imagining ourselves as James Bond, or some superhero, and we participate through fantasy. Others would be the participation is more analytical, and that doesn't take away from your enjoyment, by the way. It might actually enhance it. And when you look for the details and the interrelationships, it allows you to continue to enjoy a film past just that simple level of entertainment. So there's those two different kinds of participative experiences that you have, but pretty much the first one is immediate, and all of us kind of focus in initially. The starting point of film is the moving image, and the emphasis here excuse me, is the importance of film as a moving image as opposed to like a slideshow, but how carefully they craft even the still frames. By themselves, the still frames, individual shots, are the building blocks. They're carefully crafted. You see some examples on page 310 and 311, that follow the basics of photography, how they're framed and composed and balanced and communicate, but then they're put together sequentially, and there's something that happens with that cannot happen by itself, just a still. And that's what makes it film, that's what makes it cinema, and changes the experience of it completely. But I think you'll enjoy the little history of cinema clip that I have in the videos that come after this. Moving along to finish up this section before we get to the others. Chapters 312 and 317 are going to talk about camera point of view, and that's where we're going to pick up with the next video. This is a good stopping point for us right here.